I was so touched by that song. I was actually listening to that song the other day when I was having my devotional. So it just, it's a beautiful message through music. The title of my testimony is Into His Marvelous Light. Opposed to what a lot of people think, that I am a born Seventh-day Adventist because of my diet right now, is actually, it's not really true. I was not raised a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm pretty sure a lot of you, or maybe some of you, came from a different church background. I was raised a Catholic, actually, by a wonderful Catholic mother. She was godly. And I was born 1971. That was October 26th. My life has started quite interesting. When I was born, as a newborn, when I got home, of course, only after a few days from being born, there was like an interesting incident that happened in my life. And this was, of course, this was related to me by my parents, like when I was like around 7 years old. And both my father and my mother have shared it to me. They said that one night, they have, both of them have dreamed that there was like a huge swine in the, in our small room, because we were just living, we were poor. We were living in a small room, and both of them, had a dream, and that huge swine was going to eat me. And both of them woke up, both at the same time. And I did not have my crib. I was just, I was just laid on the flat bed, with a small cushion there. Couldn't find me. And you know where they found me, kids? They found me underneath the bed, in the middle of the bed. And I was just there, just sleeping, and very quiet. And they were wondering, what happened to, Miriam, to our baby? And they thought they lost me, but they found me just sleeping there, just quietly. And did she roll down underneath? Like, they couldn't figure out. But that was quite a mystery to me. When that incident was relayed to me by my father later on, that gave me, that curiosity, like, there must be a supreme being who is watching over me. That there is a God. I remember when I was, a young child, of course I was quite playful like you, but many times, I don't know what kind of brain I had back then, but I found myself kind of, just wondering about things. A lot of times I would, watch my playmate and just sit down in one corner and just watch them play, and then I would look up the sky and I would, I would wonder, and I really believed that there was a God, who created the heaven, and I said, there must be a God. And I keep looking at the sky and I said, there must be really a supreme being. My mother was, of course, she may not, being a Catholic, she was not, of course, giving me Bible study. We were not like you, the raised Adventists who had the privilege to, to be raised, having a worship time, reading the Bible. I did not have that experience, but there was longing in my heart for the God whom I wanted to know. And my father named me Miriam. Actually, initially they named me Maria Teresa. But then they had to change my name later on. I was named Miriam because my father, actually, by background, he was raised a Seventh-day Adventist. and he married a Catholic woman, who was my mother. But my father had his foundation, and my father had a very interesting life also back in Iloilo. So he was an Ilonggo, and he had to leave his town because he was kind of being hunted by a gang, and his manner of escaping that city was actually a miraculous one, and to be able to move to Manila, where he met my mother. But anyway, my father named me Miriam because he said, I wanted you to become like the Miriam in the Bible. I wanted you to look after your siblings, because I was the firstborn. But seems like I kind of overdone it. I kind of look after people's health. I love to, when somebody's sick, I would tell him what to do. I developed that instinct. And more and more, when I was a child, I really truly believed deep inside me that there was a God. There was one time, I was very young. I was like maybe 9 years old. And of course, can you imagine me, 9 years old, with my height? I was very tiny. So I had a near drowning accident. We were in this floater, and then it got out of balance. So I went deep down into the very deep sea. Maybe if it was my time, I could have been gone a long time ago. But when I went deep down into the sea by accident, there was some kind of force who was pushing me to go above. And it was actually a miracle, because I did not know how to swim. Although I really believe that it was God who saved me in that accident, I developed that, fear of water. Couldn't swim. Until now, I couldn't overcome it. It was because it was just really very traumatic. My father was looking for me, couldn't find me anymore. And then he just saw me. I was there in the corner, just trying to recover my strength, because, I was kind of pushed out of the water. I saw that there was like a beam of light, and I was just pushed above that. So those were incidences that really, built up that belief that there must be a supreme being, a God who was watching over me. And many afternoons, when my mother has done her laundry, washing the clothes, and we were like 3 children by that time. Instead of when my mother is sleeping, I would get that, that small booklet. Do we call it catechism? In Catholic, yeah, I forgot about it. So I would spend my time, I really love to read. I was actually, at 5 years old, I was already in grade 1, because I really wanted to read. I loved to study. I loved learning. But in the afternoon, I would, when my mom, as soon as she's asleep, I would read into that. I would go over it, and then it was so depressing, because as I was going over the catechism, I was hoping to find like anything supporting from the Bible in their doctrine. For example, when it comes to the state of the dead, purgatory, and I said, this is so sad. That means I don't have any hope. I don't feel any hope. All I saw was darkness. So what if I died and nobody would pray for me? So those people who died and they had money, they would be able to pay people to pray. What if I'm poor and I died and nobody would pray for me? I would go to hell. So I had so many questions being a Catholic. So I was just very curious about a lot of spiritual things in life, even at my very young age. And my father would sometimes, he would tell me, because I love to listen, instead of me playing with the young kids, I would hang around with, the older, the adults, and just listen to what they're talking about, because I loved listening to the wisdom of the adults. And my father would tell me, why don't you play with the children? But no, Pa, I wanted to stay here. I just wanted to listen to what you're talking about, because for me that's like, I just love to really learn. So my love for knowledge, it was that very high. It was very strong. There was one time, okay, I believe that most of us had one incident in our life, like when Jesus has clearly spoken to us. There was one time, I was only about 10 years old, okay, and I will never forget this. I had a dream, okay, and in that dream, it didn't look like the Philippines. Later on, I figured out it looked like in Jerusalem, like in Israel. Okay, because the way the setup was very different, and there was this man who was sitting in a huge rock, and he was just there. It was like in a garden, and he was sitting down with that, the white robe and that Nazarene hairstyle, and he was reaching. He was opening his arms toward me and inviting me to come to him. And I was just there, just standing up. And his voice was very inviting. So as soon as I started walking towards him, I went into that mud, the deep mud. And I was just there, just standing up, but I wanted to come to him. And he said, just come to me. And that gentle voice was calling me to come to him, and I was crying. I was crying because I wanted to come to him. But then with all the struggles, I was able to get myself out of that mud. And slowly I walked towards him, and he had me sit on his lap. And he was doing this to my hair as a father. And that feeling of love of a father, I felt that strongly in that dream, and I just didn't want to get out of the scene anymore. I just wanted to stay there and just let him, just kind of comfort me, and then caress my hair like this, as a father would. And then all of a sudden, but I couldn't see his face. There was like a veil. I was looking at his face, but there was a veil. I couldn't see it. But one thing that he has shown me was when he opened his hands. And that was when I saw the scars in his hands. And he asked me to touch it. And as soon as I touched it, he did not have to speak to me. But it was like a statement to me that, look at this, I died for you. And I didn't know in that dream who he was, but I remember that very well. As soon as I touched the nail-scarred hands of his, it broke my heart. It was like a hit in my heart. And then he had to let me go, and I didn't want to go. I had to go in that dream. I had to leave him. I knew later on why he showed in that dream. Because not long after that, I went through a lot as a child. There was a time in my life when, we had this, how it is with poor families. Of course, you don't have your own rooms, no privacy. I had a second cousin from the province who was, my father was a very helpful man, okay? And our second cousin from Bicol, we had to accommodate him at home. And our purpose is for my father to train him so that he could find his work in Manila. Long story short, I didn't want to elaborate that, but I was kind of taken advantage of by that second cousin of mine. And I did not know it. It always happened whenever I was asleep as a child. I would wake up in the morning, have some discomfort in parts where I should never feel discomfort, like what's happening to me. And then all of a sudden, I believe it was by divine intervention that we found out what he was doing. But anyway, that incident, and it must have happened like maybe a month, we don't know, because I was sleeping. There were so many days that I was kind of blaming myself. I was blaming myself. Why was I sleeping so deeply that I did not catch him? It must be my fault. Why I was not alert? Why did I not know it? So I was blaming more myself during that time, and I felt so unclean. And I believe that, God allowed that to happen for a blessing. After that incident, I really longed for cleansing, for purity. Because that feeling of being dirty or unclean, I didn't like it. I was tempted to be depressed. I had my times of depression as a child. And many years, I would cry. Even in front of my mother, I was crying because that trauma was haunting me over and over again. But during those times, the dream that I had with Jesus, it was like, later on I found out that must be Jesus who appeared in my dream. We don't know. But that dream strengthened me and gave me an assurance that somebody like Jesus loved me. I became very active in the Catholic faith. I became religious. I actually became very involved in worshiping Mary. You know that it's like how do you call that? I forgot about it. It's like going from one station to another station, and you have those idols. We were singing for Mary. I was part of the choir. So I was very involved in that. And I loved singing, and whenever I went to the church, I really loved that, the statues of Mary holding Jesus, and I would have my handkerchief and then do this.
Procession ba yun?
Yes, procession, yeah. Yeah, that was procession. And then I would dip my fingers and do this. Of course, for a time I did that. But then later on, my mind was questioning me like, why am I doing this? I want a strong foundation of why am I doing this? And I guess God must have heard my questions in my heart. Because one time, I remember, we had our grandfather's Bible, my Seventh-day Adventist grandfather's Bible. And my father showed it to me. And in the very front is the 10 Commandments. So, and in that in the 10 Commandments, in Exodus 20, verse 5 to 6, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them nor serve them. I said, it's in the Bible. Then why am I doing this? I did not have that spirit of like, when you show me something, I would reject it or justify what I was doing. I guess because I had a childlike, searching. I was really searching. So when my father showed that to me, so we are not supposed to bow down. We are not to worship other idols, but only God. So that was the very first truth that God showed me. The next time I went to the church, because we had this, like I said, a group, okay, and I had to be there all the time. I was like one of their, most favorite singer in that group, because I sang soprano. I remember walking into that big statue of Mary, and I said, Mary, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to worship you anymore. You're not God. So I was talking to her, as a child. And so then that was my first, the first time that I was thinking of, I guess it's time for me to leave this church, which I did. So I went out of the Catholic Church after being active in that singing group, but not without consequence. So our neighbors who love to, talk about stories of the lives of others, of course, I became a topic. And they were saying that, oh, Miriam is no longer a Catholic. She is gonna join some cult. So, but it did not bother me. Because in my heart, I was really searching for the truth. So I went church hopping. I was like maybe around 11 years old. So I started church hopping. And my first encounter was in a born-again fellowship. It was the JIL. It's called JIL, Jesus is Lord Fellowship. And I love the people, I said, oh, this is happy. It's like a party. So it was kind of liberating, coming out of the, I'm not talking against Catholic people, I have a lot of